Well, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's CDC meeting for April 21st, 2025. My name is Sarah Callis, and I am one of the city's attorneys. I am here this evening to facilitate the hearing. Mr. Chairman, if you would please call the meeting to order.
Thank you. Welcome to the meeting of the City of Wooddale Community Development Commission. My name is Jim Parenti, and I am the chairman of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. Secretary, can you get roll call, please?
Mr. Guzik.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Mr. Tao is absent. Ms. Zatko. Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Rudnicki.
Here.
And Chairman Parenti.
Here. Okay, the CDC has a quorum present. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes from March 17th, 2025? There be a motion and a second. All favors signify by saying yes.
Let's wait. Was there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of March 17th, 2025.
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Discussion.
All right, we got a motion for yes?
Motion carried.
Carries. Okay. Moving on to public hearing. Ms. Callis, as chairman, can I request to serve the public hearing facilitator?
Certainly. I will serve as tonight's hearing facilitator, which means that I will just keep the hearing going. I will not be making an opinion on anything that occurs. For our public hearings, all testimony will be given under oath. At the hearing, there will be the opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment. Following the public hearing, the CDC's deliberations will be open to the public in the sense that all are invited to listen and to watch. The public, however, may not speak during our deliberations. We ask that the applicant here tonight give specific evidence to demonstrate that the proposal meets the standards of approval for the request. The burden is on the applicant to prove the case. Additionally, city staff will provide a general description of the proposal, followed by their analysis. With respect to others who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why you believe that the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the request. Finally, we will strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. However, those wishing to submit evidence and testimony will be afforded sufficient time within which to do so. Whether you are a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of the applicant, you will be placed under oath and then begin by stating your name and address. You will be subject to questions by the Community Development Commission and potential cross-examination by the applicant. To allow as many people as possible to be heard, we would request that your remarks be limited to 5 minutes. If additional time is needed, the hearing will be continued until the next available hearing date. Calling tonight's first matter, CDC 2025-0005. This case involves an application filed by the Wooddale Park District for a text amendment to Chapter 13 of the Municipal Code to allow for a second community landmark sign in the city and to change the height regulations for community landmark sign. A map amendment to rezone 1051 North Prospect Avenue from an R1 residential zoning district to an I1 industrial zoning district. A text amendment to Chapter 17, Table of Permitted Uses, to allow golf courses in the I1 industrial/business park zoning district as a special use. A site plan review and a plat of consolidation to enable installation of a community landmark sign at 1051 North Prospect Avenue. Let's begin. Staff, please indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Gosha Pucheha, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the public hearing notice for tonight's petition was published in Daily Herald on April 4th. We also had a sign placed at the subject property, and mailed notices were sent to property owners within 250 feet of the subject property.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes.
All right. Would you please rise and be sworn in?
And raise your right hand, please state your name and address.
John Markwart, 111 East Foster Avenue, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do, so help me God.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. John Markwart, Wooddale Park District Executive Director. The presentation is going to be two parts. One is briefly talking about consolidation of pins at our golf course, 390 Golf Experience, as well as a request of putting a landmark sign on the property. When we're investigating this landmark sign, I was looking through the pin numbers of the golf course and 390 and realized that there was 5 different pin numbers located on the property, all of which are zoned residential. Because back in the day, there used to be houses on the property. If ever, and anybody has lived in Wooddale long enough, they remember Salt Creek Golf Courses. There was a couple houses, one of which I think the maintenance person or the person that kept the grounds for the golf course lived on. So it was a residential. Moving forward, in 1996, Top Golf got a conditional permit that allowed them to run the Top Golf facility out of there. But it was only for that parcel that Top Golf was on. So when I had preliminary discussions with Rob from Premier Signs, it was discovered that it was only residential property. And to do any of the projects that we want to do possibly in the future, as well as put a landmark sign up, we have to go from residential to commercial. So if I could just show really quick the plot of land that I'm talking about. So right here, this area right here is where, if you're familiar with 390 Golf Experience, and Salt Creek is right in this area here. This is the golf course, and this little parcel right here is where our maintenance facility is. Within that one lot, there was 5 different pins, ranging from big size to low size. So the first request to the committee tonight is to consolidate the pins into one lot, and then the second part of that request as well is to go from residential to commercial, allowing us to hopefully get a landmark sign. So the second part of the sign, I would like to call my witness to discuss the landmark sign.
All right, will you please get sworn in?
Yes.
Would you raise your right hand, please, and state your name and address?
Rob DeGoria, Premier Community Signs, 717 Market Street, Lemoyne, Pennsylvania, 17043.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you for the time. As John mentioned, we've been part of your community for about a year and a half now. We were the company that built the city's first community landmark sign on the Elgin. I'm sure you've all seen it and seen how it's been working from a communication standpoint for the city of Wooddale. I brought this with me just by literally walking down the hall, because I do every time I'm here in the city. The sign has served over the past year and a half literally as an extension of your community newsletter. I've been working very closely with Janelle on updating the sign in terms of communications, whether it be holiday events, social events, fundraising events, Prairie Fest. That sign has become not just a staple in terms of welcome to Wooddale, but also a platform for you guys to have the ability to put out messaging that complements your other messaging. When I approached John and was talking to him about a second sign in town, I thought what better way to bookend the city along the Elgin is to have a western access point and an eastern access point. Let's face it, you have the highway which is unbuilt at the moment. It's still under progress and will probably still be for quite some time. We hope so. It'll be open very soon, but probably not the case. But we have a way where commuters and residents alike will pass these signs, know that you're a part of Wooddale, turn, see an advertisement for a restaurant, see something that the community is messaging, and turn and spend time within the community. That's the premise of the community landmarks item. So when there's an opportunity to do something, to do something at the park, all of those same benefits that are essentially at sign number 1 would be carbon copied for sign number 2. The only difference here, and we'll get into that, we just kind of talked about its use so far, right? Its use for those types of activities. Now, position yourself in John's feet in terms of having the opportunity to use that platform for the Park District as well. So whether it be summer camp registrations, fundraising events, facility opening and closing, golf events, that message, that platform, they would be able to use free of cost, just like what the city is doing with your own messaging. These are some examples of how you could be using that, or they rather could be using that. From a design aesthetic, this logo here, essentially, which is in the center of sign number 1, would simply be supplemented with the Park District logo, and I can show you some renders itself. But in a sense, you're having that identification on both the eastern and the western side of the highway, if afforded the opportunity to build a second sign for the city and for John. These are some examples of how the city has already used the messaging platform, again, free of cost for the community and for your residents over the past year and a half. The exact position of the proposed sign would be in this corner of the property here, away from, let's call it, the core business of the Park District in terms of the golf experiences here and the course itself, which essentially becomes unobstructed from anything as it relates to pedestrian traffic, anything as it relates to parking. In a sense, you can do wonders with really what it amounts to be a 4 to 5 foot column that goes into the ground, right? Very, very little disturbance, very little, we would landscape around it just like we had done at location 1. But in a sense, these type of signs are meant to be high because of the overpass and because, let's face it, the motorists' visibility is kind of what we're trying to capture here. This is less of a pedestrian sign and more of a motorist's sign. This was the same design concept that was used for location 1. Again, just simply changing out the logo, having that softly illuminated in the evening. So this essentially becomes an ID sign, not just for the city, but also for the Park District as well. There is some soft illumination here as well, which we have at sign number 1, as well as at the top and here as well. This gives the board in consideration kind of a visual. I always like to do this when we're doing projects around the country, not just showing you a rendering of what the sign could be. We actually have a real sign that's out there now, right? So you could touch and feel and see it. But I always like to put it in the environment. This is to scale the best we can. The footer is here. And again, we're aiming to capture traffic along 390. We'll get into the reasons for the request for the change in language for an additional 10 feet in height. I can just touch on that for a moment because this is a great slide to kind of visualize that. The difference between this location and the first location is the first location is kind of catching the overpass on the upswing, right? So we were at overall 60 feet in height on the other sign. We were kind of be asking for your consideration on an extra 10 feet simply because we're at the apex here of the actual overpass itself. Not to mention, this view is perfect to demonstrate this because what we call in the industry is a cross read. Again, this is for vehicular traffic. You could be having a car here, you could be having a tractor trailer traveling here that's typically 14, 15 feet in height. We want to make sure that given the topography, that we have enough visual clearance for those motorists traveling eastbound to actually see the sign. I mean, that's the point of it. We want to be able to see the logo for the Park District, but we also want to see the sign itself. This clearly will be seen at the top of the city identification, but the whole point for the next kind of portion of the presentation, that's the reason for that extra 10 feet in height, because of the topography. Every site is different. Also, the big thing here, and I asked for a lot of consideration here, because this is really, I always say, when I was first here a year and a half ago, presenting the original sign, I say it's a three-headed monster, if you will. There's three benefits to these type of signs. There is a ID component, which we just talked about. There's a communication component, but there's also a revenue component. And that revenue component, the Park District would be the beneficiary of. In a sense, the land lease would be with the Park District. The funds for that year, for 25 years, would going to our community, would be going to the Park District, so that they can benefit from that financial stimulus that would be coming in from the sign. And it's pretty substantial as well. About $40,000 a year for the next 25 years, just by simply asking to borrow's a good word, 5 foot in diameter at the corner of their property. So not only will they have the ability to advertise and communicate free events and messaging for the Park District and for the city, but they're also getting a financial stimulus that's coming with this as well, this type of signage in the form of a land lease. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is a softer component that goes with this too, is yes, that's hard dollars right here, okay? That is guaranteed money, that is hard dollars. But let's face it, there is a value in the actual advertising component that others, i.e. your local restaurants, your local car washes, cleaners, flower shops, jewelry shops, etc., are paying to be on that advertising platform. Well, guess what? That dollar amount also equates to value for the Park District as well. So in a sense, our proposal, not just to you, but in a sense to the landowner, is a $1.5 million proposal to build a sign that is very, very similar, dare I say identical, to the one that you have now. This is really important from a developer standpoint. And it was really important when I first talked to the city about doing location 1. 100% of the design and engineering of this thing is incurred by us, not them, not you. 100% from a maintenance and operations in perpetuity. God forbid a panel falls on the grass or something. We do that, right? Insurance, we do that. So I always end this portion of the discussion and put up like my hand and do like a big zero, because there's $0 that are coming out of your pocket, for the building, the maintenance, and the operation of this type of community landmark signage as well. Again, when we were talking about location 1, it was more from a tax standpoint, right? From the public's standpoint. So that's the conclusion of the proposal of the sign itself, the location of where we would propose of putting it. I do have another slide that touches upon some of my comments before about the ordinance. When we first did location number 1, back in the fall of 2021, there was an ordinance passed by City Council to allow this type of signage. Believe it or not, this is not a billboard. It's not. It looks different, it acts different, it breathes different. There's components to it that are very different, not just aesthetically, but just the value that's given from pro bono standpoint, right? This community landmark sign was introduced as a new use to the board and approved as a new use within City Council code. And criteria were put around what that is. How many? How high? Where? Okay, the last thing that we wanted was to have this ambiguity of what this thing could be. We were very specific. Tried to be as clear as possible about what this would be. Now, it's kind of funny because here I am today asking for your consideration on a second one, but I'm here when the original proposal was for 1. But I ask you to consider this in good faith, meaning the second location is absolutely perfect if I were a resident of the city of Wooddale, because you have your gateway, you have your spires, you have your north and southbound, your east. You know you are coming through the city when you're traveling along the Elgin. When I say it was easy for me to look at the current ordinance and say, wow, what an easy pen stroke, that's for me to say. Because when I look at the existing ordinance, the only things that we would ask for your consideration for change would be in red, okay? The height we talked about, and I hope that you can appreciate the reasons for this, not just let's just build it taller. These things aren't, in our industry, it's not bigger the better. It's more appropriate. We build ground signs and ground monument signs on some of the nation's local roadways, signs that are 6 feet high as well. It all has to do with the topography and where this sign is placed. That extra 10 feet matters. It matters from a visual standpoint and a clarity standpoint for the motorist as well. It really does. So we were just asking for, dare I say, a simple pen stroke from the overall height to go to 70 feet, okay? Just for this specific location. But the most important part about all of this for everybody to consider, please, is we're only asking for one more. We're not standing up here and asking for a proliferation of community landmark signs in the city. This is it. This is the road that we think could be explored for a second one. I've had conversations with City Council about maybe where some other ground monument-esque signs could be placed. This is where all discussions led back to, right? You have great signage. As a matter of fact, the inspiration for the design of it, the sign itself, came from the sign that's right out here. When you did your cityscape redesign of your signage, we copied that. We copied that on purpose, right? We wanted it to make it look like it fit within the community. And again, the only thing that we would be changing would be the logo on the center column for the Park District. But to that point, the pen stroke would be, instead of 1, 2, the height, and simply the location column is just adding the second location. So that's, in a sense, what the proposal is today, is to be a partner, a continued partner, not just for the city, but a new partner to the Park District.
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does, yes.
All right. Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for the applicant? Okay.
Is there going to be any advertisement for outside businesses on this?
Yes, it would operate the same as Location 1. So Location 1 has free messaging for the city itself and messaging for local businesses as well. So it's a combination between commercial and public messaging. That's the way that the sign itself operates.
And what about the height restrictions? Doesn't interfere with O'Hare's height restriction?
Oh, funny you say that. We would absolutely need FAA approval, and during the permitting process of this, we would get that. We had to get that for Location 1, and that was a criteria for actually building and getting that. And I want to, the part of the reason, too, that we're discussing a rezone of the property itself is part of the criteria to get the first sign approved was not just approval from the local municipality, but from IDOT. IDOT needs to grant an approval for this type of signage, just as they do on all roadway signage. And in order to do that, the property would have to be zoned some sort of commercial or industrial use. So that is the premise of why I'm here as well. Without a rezone, there is no project. IDOT would not grant a permit for this type of signage, right? So it has greater benefits for the Park District, but also there is no project if it doesn't happen. Because that is a criteria. It was a criteria that I had to meet for City Council. I had to show them that IDOT looked at and granted their permit for vehicular safety, for vegetation, for sightline triangles. They have a very intense process. I had to wait a long time to get that. So not just, that is also a component that I didn't touch upon here, but that's kind of the reason why we're here. If it's zoned residential, then we can't build anything there in this category.
Are there any other questions from any other members?
What percentage of the time would a Wooddale advertisement be on the sign as opposed to a commercial advertisement?
Yeah, the way, I'll speak for the first location and then cater it to this one. The way the current sign works right now is that the city in perpetuity has one slot. That slot can be interchanged on the left hand, we call it the left-hand read, so it's called Elgin eastbound or Elgin westbound. You're always running something, okay? You're always on there, and that's forever, for the life of the lease. The way this type of signage works is that you are up there for 10 seconds. So right now, I drove by earlier today. Right now, it's shop and dine and wine, Wooddale, right? There's all golf, Wooddale. There's a bunch of things. What Janelle does is she gives me 4 or 5 different pieces of ad content. Very soon, we're going to be running Prairie Fest stuff as well, right? So you have unlimited amount of content that you give us, but you have that one spot, right? So if you're putting a message for Memorial Day parade, right? That's one message. That comes up minute number 1. Minute number 2, when you come up again, so you cycle through your jewelry store, your flower shop, your car wash. When you come through to you basically come up once a minute. When you come up again, the city is talking about Prairie Fest. And then if Janelle or the mayor or others choose to run Prairie Fest in minute 3 and 4 and 5, you can run just that one. But you have an unlimited amount of content that you can share. And you've been running that way for 1.5 years now. All sorts of different type of advertisements. So you're weaving in a guaranteed spot that's interchangeable and unlimited for the city. That would also be afforded here. Right? That's part of my lease. I have a lease that is executed between us and the property owner, and that is in the lease. They have unlimited amount of content. That's why, back to that first page on that PowerPoint presentation, when I said there could be senior events, right? Field trips. Yeah, thank you, Gosha. Like, well, yeah, so here you go. The perfect example. These are live images that were given to us from Janelle, from the city. The city, and you're running this. You guys, this city is outstanding because you do it the right way. Not every city, and I do this across the country, not every city has the digital platforms that you have. You have the clock tower, you have the library, you have the fire station, you have the municipal complex. You have these platforms. The minute Janelle gives me Wooddale Police Night Out, you're running that on the clock, you're running it on the Elgin, you're running it on every roadway in the city. It's amazing. You're capturing your community from all different angles, right? If you could just scoot back up to like the first slide or so, so just examples. They could do the same thing. They can talk about their Easter events. They could talk about we're hiring. They can talk about, hey, we're aerating the golf course this week. Sorry, tee times are truncated. Whatever it is, right? Fundraiser at the Golf Experience, right? Kids Night Out, whatever it is. That's plastered up for soon to be, and I underscore, soon to be 100,000 cars a day. Right now we're not. Right now we're not. We are hovering at about 35,000 cars a day. But once that tollway opens and connects through O'Hare, you're at about 100, 110,000 cars a day. That's an enormous amount of exposure for the city and for the Park District.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, does staff have a presentation?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Just going to pull it up real quick. Thank you so much. Really what I wanted to focus on is more sort of the zoning background behind the petitions. What we heard from the applicant is sort of the ultimate goal, or the fact that the intent is for them to install a second community landmark sign, but in order to get there, there's a couple steps that we have to do through the zoning process to be able to enable it. So on the slide in front of us, and that was also in the staff memo, we have a number of zoning requests that are necessary. So I'll just go through them briefly, and we'll get into a little bit more detail with some of them later on. So the first one is the text amendment to Chapter 13. Those are the changes that the applicant actually covered in depth. It was the fact that the amendment would allow the second sign to be placed with certain restrictions. So the description in the text, the proposed text, is very specific where that second sign can be located. So it's really tailored for this particular location at the subject property owned by the Park District. And then there's the fact that they're requesting an increase in height, which was explained as well. It's really driven by the fact that they want to make sure that it's visible because of the grade changes at the subject location for sign number 2. A map amendment is essentially the rezoning request. Once again, it is driven by the fact that IDOT, in order to even consider a property for this type of sign, the property has to be zoned commercial or industrial. So the request is to rezone it from the current R1 residential zoning district to the industrial zoning I1. The second request is a text amendment to Chapter 17, which is our Unified Development Ordinance, and more specifically, the table of permitted uses. Because the applicant is petitioning to rezone the property to I1, we want to make sure that the golf course operation exists in the I1 zoning district, that it is a permitted use. Right now, it's only allowed in the residential zoning districts as a special use. So the second text amendment request is to allow golf courses as a special use in the I1 zoning district, just to allow the existing operation of the subject property the way it is right now. And then we also have a site plan review because essentially this is development that once the zoning is approved to industrial, our code says that site plan review is required for any type of development in the I1 zoning district. So that is something that's done by staff. It was addressed in the staff memo, but that is not necessarily something that's for consideration by CDC. And then lastly, we have plat of consolidation. So as was mentioned very early in the presentation, the property does consist of 4 parcels. There are 5 PIN numbers associated with it, so the request is to really combine it all into one, which is very typical for a lot of petitions that we go through. It's a little bit of a cleanup. We want to make sure that there's one property associated with particular requests and ordinance and so on. So the location map, hopefully we're all very familiar. We're really at the north end of town. The proposed sign will be located at the very far southwest side of the property, so we're close to Thorndale Avenue and Prospect Avenue. This is just an overall map. As we can see, this is the golf course that is zoned R1 currently. We have Itasca that really surrounds the area. There is a portion, this portion over here is currently unincorporated DuPage County. And then we have our industrial district over here. So this is just a general location. This is just a snippet of our zoning map. It does show the current zoning as R1. As we can see, this is all of our industrial zoning district that's adjacent to it. The unincorporated property to the north, and then we have Itasca surrounding us, and there's a mixture of, this one is zoned R1, but it's actually their playing field. So it's really specifically meant for sports fields. There's some mixed-use zoning district on one side, and B3, which is their commercial services zoning district. And on the south side, we have Elgin O'Hare Expressway. The existing conditions, so all parcels combined are about 62 acres in size. We did talk about the 4 parcels, so I think the idea is that there are 2 addresses assigned. The clubhouse has 1 address, it's Building A, I believe, and then the actual building where the driving range is a different address. Quite possibly, that's why 2 PIN numbers were assigned to it, so we discovered as we were going through the process. So that explains why there's 5 PIN numbers. The property is improved with an existing clubhouse with a golf course, and then we have the commercially operated driving range. There is a mini golf area, but it is not being utilized right now. So the applicant has expressed or is in agreement to remove that particular area and restore it because it's not being utilized right now. All of the properties are owned by the Wooddale Park District, and I do want to mention that there's really existing parking on site as well, but as part of our process, really the focus here are the zoning requests that are for the text amendment to sign code, text amendment to the UDO, and the rezoning. So the actual operation of the golf course really will be unchanged. It will continue as is. This is just a close-up of the property that we've seen before. So I wanted to get a little bit more into the rezoning. So the subject property, as was mentioned before, must be rezoned to industrial zoning in order to be even considered for a permit by IDOT. So that is really the driving force for this request. I do want to sort of provide a little bit of a background on the property. So the operation of the golf course on the subject property was originally authorized by issuance of a special use ordinance back in 1997. So really the golf course has been there for quite some time. In 2006, there was another special use approved by City Council, which expanded the use and included now the golf course, the commercially operated driving range, and the miniature golf facility. They were all written into the approval. And once again, I want to emphasize that that use will remain. We're kind of going through all of these zoning requests to enable continued operation of the golf course. The text amendment to Chapter 17, as I explained, is really just making sure that once we rezone the property, that the use may continue as a special use. Because there already is a special use associated with the subject property, they will not have to go through that process again. We just want to make sure that our table of permitted uses reflects that those special uses are allowed in that particular zoning district. So a little bit of a cleanup. The text amendment to Chapter 13 were covered in depth, so really the fact that we're allowing the second sign and increasing the height. In terms of compliance with the comprehensive plan, our future land use map in the comprehensive plan actually designates this area as industrial business park. So at some point it was considered maybe either possibility for redevelopment, or there could have been some development pressure in the area. Obviously the plan is not to redevelop the property right now, but the rezoning to an industrial zoning district is really in compliance with the comprehensive plan. There is a goal, there's multiple goals in the comprehensive plan, but this particular request could help the city in promoting a communicative atmosphere in the city and also working with other agencies. So it does address some of the goals of the comprehensive plan. The proposed, actually site plan, but this is really just the proposed rendering that we've seen from the applicant. So emphasizing once again, the use of the property will not change. Really the biggest thing will be that the miniature golf area will be removed, and then the new sign will be installed, obviously pending issuance of permits, and that includes the IDOT permits, all the permits that are required by the state, and also our local permits through the City of Wooddale. In terms of public comments, as I mentioned, we did publish notices, we mailed out notices. I have not had any contact or any questions submitted to our department prior to this meeting. And that takes us to the draft motion. So in your memo, you will find the draft motion for the 3 zoning requests that are being considered. We do recommend a few conditions to be added, and those are for your consideration for City Council. The first one is that the miniature golf shall be removed, because it is not being used right now, it's underutilized, so we want to make sure that the area is cleaned up. The second condition is obviously the fact that we want to make sure that the applicant is able to obtain the state approval before our city permits are issued, and then that there's an ongoing obligation, so condition number 3, to maintain the landscaping that's required by our code and also just by a regular approval of the site. So the approved site plan will show landscaping, and we want to make sure that even years from now that landscaping is maintained. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gosia. Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for staff?
One question on the miniature golf area being removed. I take it that's because it's not being used, or it's
That is correct. It has not been used, yeah, in quite some time.
How's everything going with the regular golf course?
I will defer that to the applicant.
It's amazing, one of the things that...
Would you mind? It's recorded, so
Yes.
we wanted to.
One of the few things that was good that came from COVID was the use of golf courses. And we've seen that it's continued to still grow year after year. I think the people that went out to try to do something to get some fresh air, picked up golf and decided to stay with it. So our golf course is maintaining its customer base, and 390 is starting to pick up steam. We're starting to lose the name of the former Top Golf, and it's turning into 390 Golf Experience. And that's one of the things that's really going to benefit us as well as the city as well, is we're on the outskirts of the city, and it's, oh, is that the place that's right by Itasca? Well, no, it's in Wooddale. So now we're going to have this giant sign that's going to say City of Wooddale. It's on our property, that when people look at it, they're going to say, oh, that's a golf course. It's City of Wooddale. So it's just a little benefit as well. So, thank you.
Go ahead.
And all the people across the road there, there's condos and, I don't know if they're apartments. Have they been notified as to what's going on?
So we are required to send notices to property owners within 250 feet. I do not believe it got across the street, that distance,
That's
so
pretty
no.
close.
But that's why we had a sign. So there was a sign right by the entrance to the golf course. So anyone that was traveling on Prospect would see a sign that there's a public hearing.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions for staff? Okay. Are there any members of the general public who wish to make a comment or have a question for the applicant? No? Okay. And does anybody here have any further comments, testimony, questions? Okay.
One quick question. Do you have any idea what your projection is of this sign being there, what it's going to do for the golf course as far as increased business, or?
Could you please stand at the podium?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep on forgetting about this. I have a loud voice, I just think that everyone can hear me, including the microphone. I definitely think it will help us. Like I said, we're right on 390, and people tend to see these giant nets up there, but we have no signage per IDOT restrictions on the one side. So they see a building, they see nets. I mean, now they're going to be able to see a giant sign. It says City of Wooddale with the Park District logo. And if they catch the display that pops up during that time, great. But if not, they still see the sign that puts this to that, which is, I think, definitely going to help us tremendously.
Just one thing to add to that as well. In the outdoor sign industry, not every property owner is privileged to have the physical benefit of the message at the top and the business that it's advertising right there. Meaning, you could run a advertisement for youth soccer and them doing a fundraiser to come and do and rent out the bays and come and celebrate their wins of the season or what have you, or fundraising for next season. And you can put 10 to 12 youth soccer with literally a giant arrow, right? Next Thursday night or all weekend, 10% of proceeds go to youth soccer for anybody that rents out a bay. I'm not telling you how to run your operation, but just something simple like that, right? Simple like, and that we also help with that kind of stuff too. Simple like that, 10% Thursday to Sunday, boom. Any money that comes in goes to youth soccer. An arrow that points down. So the benefit of the property owner having the facility that gets the revenue from the, not just the land lease, but the advertisement with an arrow there is very unusual. So there is that added benefit of having it, being it right, right there.
Okay, any other questions? And any further testimony? Okay. Having no additional testimony, do we have a motion to close the public hearing in case number CDC 2025-0005? And anyone can say so moved.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call vote on the motion, please. Okay.
Ms. Zadko? Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Guzik?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
And Chairman Parenti?
Yes.
Okay, so the public hearing portion is closed with 6 yes votes. And we are now entering the portion where the CDC deliberates. We will now proceed into the deliberation of the merits of the request. Does any CDC member have any statements or comments that they would like to make at this time? Okay. There being no further discussion, I am looking for a motion. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed text amendment to Chapter 13 to allow a second community landmark sign and change height regulations, map amendment, rezoning from R1 to I1, and text amendment to Chapter 17, Table of Permitted Uses, to allow golf courses in I1, are consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan, and therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated April 21st, 2025, as the findings of the Community Development Commission and recommend to the City Council approval of the text amendments to Chapter 13 to allow second community landmark sign and change height regulations, map amendment, rezoning from R1 to I1, and text amendment to Chapter 17, Table of Permitted Uses, allow golf courses in I1, to enable construction of a second community landmark sign within the City of Wooddale per case number CDC 2025-0005 with the following conditions. 1, that the miniature golf area shall be removed, regraded, and grass planted prior to final sign inspections. 2, the applicant must provide a copy of the state permit approval of the sign prior to issuance of the city's sign permit. 3, the property owner has the ongoing obligation to maintain the landscaping by the base of the sign in accordance with the approved landscape plan. Do we have that motion? And anyone can say so moved.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
And is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Zadko?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Guzik?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
No.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
And Chairman Parenti?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have an affirmative vote, and as Marilyn indicated, the motion is passed. Having received the required affirmative vote, the motion does pass, and Mr. Chairman, that concludes tonight's hearing matters. I cede the floor back to you.
Gosha, is there anything else?
We have no other reports.
All right. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I got a second motion. Be a motion, second in favor, signify by saying yes. All opposed saying no. The motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Let them say.
Oh.